Hey folks, here we are again with Family Style with Jimmy and June, my little girl, Junebug, Junie. And today we're going to do one of our all-time favorites. I know I say that about a lot of recipes, but this is one that I not only grew up with, I have cooked and served to thousands and thousands of people through River Run and through catering with JDK Barbecue as well, and that is my mom's cornbread recipe. And I think we probably had this on our table growing up at least 5 or 6 times a week, and she insisted on making it almost every day. And to be honest, it wasn't my favorite. I just didn't like it that much growing up, but now I love it. And we cook it at our house pretty often too, don't we, honey? What's your favorite way to eat cornbread?
Plain with butter.
Plain with butter is a pretty good way. I think that's my favorite too. And we are using King Arthur gluten-free flour in here and some cornmeal that was made in Oxford, Mississippi by Delta Grind, and 2 great companies. And I truly believe that this recipe, the gluten-free recipe, is even better than any standard flour recipe I've ever used. I mean, I make this all the time, and I don't even always tell people it's gluten-free. It's so good. You like it, right? All right, and this is a super simple recipe. I always thought when my mom was making this how difficult it was for her to make this every day, or practically every day. And I've come to realize that it's not that hard to make, and it lasts for several days, you know, unless you just eat it all. And you can also use the cornbread. I mean, we use it a lot of different ways. You can serve this with Eggs Benedict. You can open up the cornbread and use it like a biscuit or English muffin for that, or just about anything. You can also, the leftovers you can use for like stuffing or just about anything, or just plain with butter, right? All right, we're gonna get to this. And what I like to do is we have some oil here, and we have a hot Lodge cast iron skillet. And what this does, I think it does a couple of different things. First, it jump starts the cooking process. And it also, with the heat of the oil, it kind of gives it a good crust all around the edges and on the bottom and even a little bit on top. And what we do is we heat this up and we add it to the cornbread batter right at the end. Why don't you mix up these wet ingredients, which we have milk and eggs. Just mix that up really well. And we always have the dry and the wet separate. We got a little bit of baking powder in here. We got a little bit of salt and a lot of sugar. And
that's a lot.
It is a lot. And purists will say, especially in the South, that you don't add sugar to cornbread. But this is my mom's recipe, and this is what we've always done. And I think it works pretty well. We both think it does, right, honey? So just mix your wet.
Really, really yummy.
It is. So mix the dry and mix your wet separately. You gonna go ahead and add that, sweetie?
To that?
Yep, just pour it right in. Go for it.
Can you hold this?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, and we don't use a whisk for this just because the whisk will get all messed up and clogged up. And a lot of times when you're baking, you always hear, don't overmix, don't overmix. That's not true with cornbread. I think the more you mix this, the better it works out. So that's what we're going to do, just stir it up really well. You want me to help you with that?
Not yet.
You get it started and I'll finish it up. How's that?
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hard to stir once you add the wet.
Here, let me get that for you. It takes a long time. And it's kind of like, gets kind of thick, doesn't it?
That's when it gets hard to stir.
And like I said, just keep mixing and get it super smooth. You like the spin the bowl technique? All right, once we get that nice and blended, and you could keep going with this, like I said, just go for it. Then we're going to add the hot oil. Here comes some hot stuff, honey. Be careful, because that is hot.
I know.
And when I'm heating this oil up, sometimes I just heat it up right on the stovetop like this, or sometimes I just put the whole pan right in the oven. That way it gets the pan nice and hot too. This way it's all greased up and ready to roll. Let me get that. Don't you burn yourself.
It sprayed you.
I know. That's why I didn't want you to do it. This takes a little bit more time to mix in the oil into the batter, but it does work. Just keep going. That's all it is to it, folks. Super easy. You don't want to fill the pan up all the way. You want to go about 1/2 to 3/4 because it is going to rise. And we've preheated the oven to 425. And we're going to bake this for about 25 minutes. A really hot oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. Get your batter in there, and then just kind of smooth it out. Make it nice and pretty. And then we just go right into the oven. Okay? $425. All right. So we're going to bake that for 25 minutes, and then we'll show you what it looks like. All righty. All right, June, it's been 25 minutes. I think the cornbread is done. Last time I checked, it looked pretty good. Looks nice and brown. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice, heavy cast iron pan full of the beautiful cornbread. Look good to you? Mm-hmm. You want to eat some? All right, in a few minutes we will. And this is what I was talking about with heating the oil up and putting it into the batter. You see how it just gives it this little crust, and you'll see it better when we take it out of here. But it jump starts that cooking process and just pops that crust right into the pan, which I love to see. And if you don't have yourself a large cast iron pan or a cast iron pan, be sure and get one, folks, because we use this thing in the oven. Yes, ma'am.
If you took off the top of it, you could turn it into a soup bowl.
You talking about just like cut a hole out and put soup in there?
Because there's a little crack, you could just lift it up and cut a hole.
That's a great idea, sweetheart. She always comes up with these great recipe ideas, and that's something we're going to have to try. Maybe you'll put some like stew or something in there, or tomato soup.
Tomato soup.
Tomato soup. Hey, we got a new recipe just like that. And like I said, get yourself a cast iron pan, take care of it, it lasts you forever. This pan, this particular pan was my mom's, and she probably got it from her mom, so I cook with it 5 or 6 nights a week, pretty much all the time. You gonna try some of this stuff?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it then. I told you how my dad liked cornbread, right? He would take a huge glass of buttermilk, crumble cornbread up into the buttermilk, leftover cornbread, and then salt and pepper. He would drink and eat it with a spoon, like a lot, like every other day probably. And I'm not sure how healthy that was, but it's really good. We can try that when we get home. No? Okay. We'll just use butter on yours then. This feels really good. The first one's always the hardest one to get out, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Look at that. Here's that beautiful crust on the edge, the bottom.
The side.
Everywhere, right? Let's get one more piece here.
It looks good.
Yeah, this is a really good recipe that never fails. Look at that steam coming off there. You want a bite?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yummy.
Yummy? That's what we want to hear. That is so moist. And it's gluten-free, too. I mean, you wouldn't even know it, but that's good stuff.
It doesn't even need butter.
It doesn't need butter. The oil, everything in there is good, and the sugar's good. I like it like that. So these recipes, or this recipe, will be on newenglandcooks.com as well as jimmydk.com. We're going to have a lot of great recipes from Family Style on both websites, so check it out. Thank y'all.